Building and filling raised beds for your garden can be pretty expensive if you follow the traditional route of building and filling your raised beds. I'm going to talk briefly about building the raised beds and how I cut costs building them, but the main focus of today is going to be how to fill your raised beds with a better product and for a fraction of the cost. Because a lot of people are spending like 80 to 120 bucks per yard of what they're thinking is good compost, when in all actuality, all it is organic matter that comes with very, very little biology, if at all. We've tested all the bagged options under the microscope. We've tested all the landscape options, everything we had access to. We threw it under the microscope to see if there's any biology coming with any of these options, and the answer is there isn't. So don't spend your money on where you're thinking or what you're being told is good quality compost or good quality raised bed filter or anything like that, because it's all worthless. So we're gonna go through step by step the better route of filling raised beds. It's gonna be cheaper and it's gonna be far superior than the traditional route. Now, before we get into that, remember the Sovereign Health Summit is going to be next October. It's a Barbara O'Neill event. There's gonna be a bunch of awesome speakers there. Whatever you've been diagnosed with does not have to be forever. Come get yourself healed at the Sovereign Health Summit. It's going to be next October. 5% discount code down below. Use the code and the link down below in the description box. If you need an on-site consultation, an on-site permaculture consultation where I come out to your property and I give you a game plan of what to do, where to do it, and when to do it, hit up my email down below saying, hey, I'd like a consultation. Give me your location, about your acreage, things like that. And then if you'd like a soil biology test, hit up the same email and just say you'd like a soil biology test. And if you want to learn everything I know about permaculture, hit up the Patreon link down below. You can get in for as little as $5 a month. And I'm uploading every YouTube video that I do over on Patreon as well, so you can avoid the ads, basically. That being said, let's get into the video. First, let's talk about the construction of the raised beds. This wood right here, the only thing that I purchased for these raised beds right here was the was the hardware, like the screws and the nails, and then also the gas it took to mill these boards. These are boards that I milled from a combination of oak and some pine out at the demonstration site. So that's where the wood for the raised beds came from. This was all this wood that you see in these raised beds was all milled by me with a chainsaw. Shows that it's entirely possible. Now, this does require a little bit of skill with the chainsaw and access to a chainsaw. So if you don't have access to a chainsaw, another thing you could do is go and get a bunch of used pallets from stores, and you can use that as lumber. You can either break down the pallets and then use that like lumber to build raised beds, or you can just use the whole pallet and then build walls, cut it down to height and stuff like that, and you'll be just fine that way. Now, a lot of people lately have been saying it's been harder to get raised or to get pallets because the stores typically resell them to the supplier. The alternative is to get the busted pallets by the dumpster. Everywhere I've checked and I asked if I could have pallets, they said any pallets by the dumpster you can have, and their like standard for busted pallet is pretty doggone like low. Like I've picked one up before that had just like a single busted board, and they considered that a busted pallet, and it was something that they couldn't sell back. So you can still get some pretty good pallets over by the dumpster. And as far as dimensions go, the limit on the height is 4 feet, because that's where the contact point between what I fill this with and the soil underneath it goes anaerobic. So height, anything between 4 feet and a couple inches, whatever is comfortable for you. And then the width, no wider than 4 feet, because at 4 feet, I can be here on the edge and I can comfortably reach the middle of the bed without having to like hunch over and hurt my back. And then the length, whatever fits for you, whatever works for you. Now, as far as spacing between beds, I always make sure it's wide enough for me to get a garden cart and or a wheelbarrow in there. So that way I, have easy access. I'm not cutting off my access to my garden by bringing everything in closer together. So after your raised bed is built, as you can see right here, it's built in place. Ignore everything back there. That's going to come in later steps. But after your raised bed is built, before you put it in place, before you stake it in place, I like to go through and mow the vegetation as low as possible, because that's going to be your first layer within your raised bed, is the organic matter that can go ahead and start decomposing in place, if there is any organic matter. Don't till it in, because that's going to screw up the structure of the existing soil and stuff like that. So if it's like a workable plane, then I would, if at all possible, not till it. If you have to shape it, you have to shape it. It's not the end of the world. We're going to be fixing that here in a few minutes anyway. But mow everything down as low as possible. And the alternative and then put your bed in place. And then the alternative to tilling would be this broad fork right here. You're gonna stab it down into the ground and you're gonna pry it all the way back. And what this is going to do is loosen up and break up that soil, which is important here in this part of Texas because we have heavy clay soils. But you're gonna loosen up that soil and you're gonna allow oxygen to penetrate deeper into your soils. So if you have heavy compacted soil, this is the solution to that, is broad forking. This also, the downside of tilling, of normal tilling, is that if I till, let's say 3 inches deep, that 4th inch is going to be super compacted and it's gonna not allow, depending on how the PSI, it's not gonna allow plants to actually go and grow. It's not gonna, sorry, it's not, I can't work and talk at the same time apparently. It's not gonna allow roots to penetrate down below that layer. But if I can subsoil with this broad fork or on a larger scale, a yeoman's plow, then I'm increasing how deep the roots can actually go down into the soil. Oh, look at this. Found a little worm. I'm sure he's probably pretty cold. Let me put him back in the soil. There we go. And then after broad forking, I'm gonna put down a carbon layer. Now in this case, it's going to be a bunch of packing paper. Down there you can see corrugated cardboard. The key with this is making sure your pieces are overlapping and then also making sure that you have it saturated first. Because like where I live here in this part of Texas, this cardboard is gonna get, if I don't pre-saturate it first, it's gonna get so doggone dry and it's gonna be hydrophobic at first. If you're using cardboard, I mean, you can use multiple layers and it's gonna break down pretty doggone quickly because of the corrugation in the cardboard. The ants find it, or not the ants, but the, what are they called? The worms, they'll find it and then they just kind of go crazy over the stuff. I always like to view it as like this little worm superhighway where they're just able to like fast travel across the soil because they have like a pre-cut out corrugated pathway for them. But both either if you're using cardboard, and again with the cardboard, I've said this in previous videos, I don't care what kind of cardboard it is. I don't care if it has ink on it. I don't care if it's waxed. The only thing that I'm concerned with when it comes to cardboard is taking the tape off. I don't care if there's gloss, anything like that. All those dyes and all those inks are going to be locked up with the soil biology that we're going to be adding here in a minute. So this is going to help suppress a lot of, like if you have Bermuda grass issues or Johnson grass or like a really heavy spreading grass issue, this is going to help keep the weeds at bay so things aren't growing up out from the bottom of your raised bed. And then I view this as a better alternative than any of the weed fabrics, the landscaping fabrics or the weed mats or using the plastic sheeting, anything like that. This is a better alternative. This is going to help convert my soil. The plastic and the fabric and stuff like that is not going to help convert the soil. This carbon is going to act as a long-term slow release fertilizer / food for the fungi within the soil. So this is actually going to help make my soil better and suppress weeds, as opposed to just suppressing weeds for a little bit and then becoming a nightmare to remove from my garden once I'm tired of it. I can either immediately start building soil or I can suppress weeds for a little bit of time and then have to end up building soil anyway. So I might as well just get to the building soil part sooner than later. So just a recap: build your raised bed, mow the area down, broad fork the area, put down either cardboard or paper or whatever you want to do here on the bottom. It's going to help suppress weeds, and it's also going to help convert the fungal to bacteria ratio over to more fungal dominant soils. And then let me finish this patch up right here, and then we'll get on to the next step. And I'm saying it again because it's very, very important, but you have to make sure your paper or your cardboard is wet before putting it on the ground. Otherwise, it's going to be hydrophobic and it's going to wick water as opposed to absorbing water. This is what I'm filling the raised bed with. Why am I picking this? Because it was the cheapest possible fill dirt topsoil I could find. This coming in at about $2 per bag. This is the absolute cheapest that I could find. And another reason, if you guys have access to like a truck and a dump trailer and stuff like that, go to the landscape yard and you'll find it much, much cheaper. Like you can find fill dirt for like 20 to 40 bucks per yard. That's going to be a cheaper route. But I also wanted to show in this video that like, even if you don't have a truck, if you can't pick up a load or anything like that, you can still buy the bags and achieve the same thing from like Ace or Walmart, Tractor Supply, whatever it is. So the reason I'm going with bags is to demonstrate a more accessible, route to everybody watching. If you have the option to go to a landscape yard, do that. It's going to be even cheaper. And what I'm trying to convey with this is go with the cheapest route possible. Because, like I said at the beginning of the video, none of these soils are worth what you're paying for it. So go with the cheapest one anyways, and then we'll remediate what we bought here in a minute. I'll show you guys, after I get this raised bed filled, I'll show you guys how to remediate it, so that way you can turn any crappy soil into something that's going to be fantastic and is going to blow up your first year of gardening, guaranteed. As long as you follow the recipe, as long as you have what I'm talking about using, you'll be in pretty high production pretty doggone quickly. Yeah, so buy the cheapest one you can find, because you're gonna have to fix it anyway. You can buy a more expensive one if you want, but you're still gonna have to fix the soil. So buy the cheapest one and then we'll fix all the issues after that. Alrighty, so got this bed nice and smoothed out. Got this bed, this is another new bed, and then this bed right here, this is also another new bed. Got all these filled up, got the cardboard down, got them filled up, and now we're gonna get into the soil remediation part. Now, this specific soil remediation part, you can apply to new beds, old beds, whatever kind of bed, whatever stage your beds are in. I don't care if you have something growing, if you don't have something growing, whatever it is, you guys can all follow this next step. So let's say you filled up some raised beds a couple years ago and it's just been crappy soil ever since then. Follow these steps and you will have if you follow the steps, you'll have guaranteed fantastic harvests this year. All right, so the next thing to figure out for these raised beds, or the next thing to do, is inoculate it. I was saying at the beginning of this that the issue with all the bagged soil and the compost and stuff like that that you can get to fill raised beds with, the issue with it is that it's all lacking biology. And biology is the crux of fertility within the soil. It's like basically if you have the proper biology, and this is a super simplified version, I go into more depth about it, especially on compost videos and everything. But if I have the proper biology in the soil, then it's an on-demand system for the plant. The plant shoots down exudates or sugars in the soil, and those exudates come with a grocery list of things that the organism has to go and get in exchange for that sugar. Now, if it's a bacteria, for example, that's going to get what's on that grocery list, it can't make a direct transaction back to that plant. It has to get eaten by a predator, pooped out, and then the plant benefits. And if you have that nutrient cycling going on in the soil, you are going to have very, very resilient and healthy plants. You're gonna have less pests, you're gonna have bigger bumper crops. Overall, you're just gonna have a healthy plant, a healthy system in your property. And it's the reason that any of this stuff grows. You look at that forest back there, I mean, you guys can't see it, but there's a forest back there, and there's nutrient cycling going on there. There's nobody out there fertilizing that forest, but you notice everything in that forest is growing fantastically. And it's because it has the proper biology within the soil. Now it has a different ratio of biology in that forest because it's more a perennial system. I'm trying to grow annual systems. All I need to get to is a ratio of 1-to-1 bacteria to fungi. If I can get to that ratio, then I know it's gonna be hard to kill this garden. This is my compost. What you see right here is my compost, and this is the alternative to buying anything. Unlike the compost that I can buy at the store, this compost is very, very biologically active. If I were to take, believe it or not, half of this handful, right? Half of this handful by volume is living organisms. That's insane, isn't it? That's what I'm inoculating into my raised beds. I'm going to make a simple compost extract. Right here, I just have a couple of handfuls of compost within a paint strainer, and then I have a bucket of ambient temperature water right here. And I'm gonna use this, actually, I'm gonna make a bucket per new bed, actually per bed in general. But you could easily just make like one bucket of this and then fertilize all the beds that I have right now, which are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 normal sized beds, and then that one really long bed that I just filled. But because I have the compost, because I have the biology, I'm going to try to inoculate as much biology into the soil as possible, so that way I have actually good soil. And you can do this this is why the quality of the soil that I filled the soil or the raised beds with didn't matter, is because I was going to have to inoculate it with good biology anyway. If I have super heavy clays, the organisms are going to go in there and flocculate those clays and create crumb structure. If I have very, very sandy soil, then the microbes are going to be able to glue themselves to that sand and start breaking that sand down, still creating like that good crumb structure. Now, if you have super sandy soils and all you have is sand, and like if you pour a cup of water in that sand and it's gone, like if you dig a small hole and you pour a cup of water in that sand and then it's gone within a few seconds, then here's an additional thing you can add to your compost. What you have to make, and this is where biochar really shines, is in sandy soils, but you got to make some biochar. If you can't make biochar, just get some lump charcoal from the grocery store. Make sure it doesn't have any additives or anything like that. But charcoal is just uninoculated, or biochar is just inoculated charcoal. That's really all it is. And you have to inoculate it first, otherwise it's gonna have like some bad side effects in your garden bed. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I just added a couple handfuls of biochar. The real fine sediments and stuff like that are gonna make it into this liquid, and then everything that gets strained out from this is just gonna make it on the raised bed anyway. But this biochar is going, if I have sandy soils, what this biochar does is allow the organisms to glue themselves. It gives a home for the organisms, basically. Since the water flows through that sand so quickly, it doesn't give the organisms enough time to glue themselves to the sand. That's where biochar comes into play. It's like a very porous carbon structure, right? And it gives those organisms a place to glue themselves and then eventually attach themselves to the sand without getting washed down every time there's a rain event. Also, biochar can hold up to 10 times its weight in water, which is super handy when it comes to sandy soils. It's still gonna have a benefit to like clay-based soils because it's still a home for the microbes. It's just not like mandatory in clay-based soils. You can pretty much get where you need to go without using. This first batch of compost extract is made. This bag is gonna go on the surface of one of these raised beds, and then this bucket of water is probably, it's gonna go in the watering can wherever I put that, and then I'm gonna water the entirety of the raised bed. If you don't have compost, that's perfectly okay. Here in a second, I'm gonna show you an alternative to making compost. It's the only alternative that I recommend, and it's gonna have a lot of that really awesome biology that we just talked about. Now, another thing to point out with this is that there's no risk of overdoing it, right? In fact, I'm gonna put this on the bed so any of the overspill makes it into the bed. But keep in mind with this, there's no risk of burning plants. There's no risk of like over fertilizing or anything like that, because what you're doing is just pushing in the biology. That's not going to burn anything. You're not going to have any negative side effects from good biology being in the soil. So I'm just going to go through and use this entire bucket on this one bed right here and get as much biology inoculated in as possible. If you're about to go into like drought temperatures, then you want to make sure you keep your organisms like moist. Just make sure, like if you're going into a drought, you're gonna have to come out here and water and make sure the organisms don't dry out. Otherwise they're gonna go dormant and then they're not gonna be much of a benefit. So just something to think about. We are actually about to get this massive snowstorm here in the southeast. So the snow and the ice is gonna act as a slow release, basically water drip. Now, if you're in an area where there's sustained cold temperatures, obviously I'm recording this in January, but whenever you're watching this, just take the outside temperature into consideration. If it's gonna be cold, really cold for a long period of time, then hold off on this, or try to apply all the biology before it gets really cold, or wait till everything thaws and then apply the biology. Just remember, you're dealing with living organisms. You gotta kind of take care of them and everything. So as long as you keep that in mind, you'll be good. All right, so this one is for those of you that can't make compost, whether it's just a physical inability or you just don't have it made already or you can't wait. Whatever it is, this is the only alternative that I recommend. It's Soil Saviors. And this is, like, they won't tell you this, but it's something that could, if you do it right, could be a one-time purchase. Now, this box will fertilize up to 5 acres. Now, I've been using it, and I'm gonna use what I have left in these beds right here, and I'm gonna hit all the beds. What's cool about this though is that even though it doesn't have all of the organisms that my compost might have, it has organisms that my compost definitely doesn't have. Some of those being extremophiles. So if you're, or RK bacteria, depending on where you're coming from. But if you have contamination in your soil, Or if you have like toxins in your soil, it could be dioxins, it could be like forever chemicals, it could be whatever it is. That's what archaebacteria and the extremophiles thrive in. They thrive in those very, very crappy conditions when nothing else can survive, and very, very toxic conditions when nothing else survives. And it literally eats these toxins and breaks it down. This is part of what my parents used to remediate the soils in North Carolina that were heavily contaminated with like forever chemicals, radiation, everything. This is what they use to lock up those toxins in less than 6 months. This in combination with the compost. So just keep in mind, like, these things are really, really, they're just, there's something the mainstream is not going to tell you about, is using biology to clean up forever chemicals. But it comes, if you buy a box of the Soil Savers, also if you're on their website and it looks like you're signing up for a ministry, that's because they're a PMA, private membership association. That just protects them from like any legal issues. It's the same thing basically as a country club. You're not signing up for some weird church or anything like that. But it comes with like resonator, comes with earth angels, comes with earth kelp, earth compound, licorice, earth syrup, and then the last one being earth tonic. And it comes with 1 acre instructions. So if you need to scale up or scale down, then you're good to go. If you're doing all 5 acres, then just dump everything in a bucket and then dilute it properly. It'll give you all the dilutions, all the ratios you need to in the instructions. But I'm going to go ahead and use up what I got left over here in the garden. Now, this is another thing where it's not including all of the organisms that I talked about in your compost, but it's going to set up the conditions for the right organisms to show up. And that's what we're looking for. Now, also a little word of caution, whenever you're mixing this stuff up, make sure you're not introducing too much air to the mix. Make sure you like, because some of these organisms are facultative organisms, which means they thrive in the in-between stage of aerobic and anaerobic. And if you add too much air, if you mix it up too much, like, don't add a bubbler or anything like that. Like, stir enough just to get everything mixed up well, but don't just kind of like what is it, muffins? Stir it like muffins. Not too mixed together, just enough to be a liquid, really. Because you run the risk of introducing too much oxygen to this mixture, and then your facultative organisms kind of go dormant. But if there's toxins around, like, don't worry, you're not going to mess. It's hard to mess up, so you should be good. I use it in conjunction with compost. So if you do have compost, you can still benefit from this. I use it in conjunction with compost because of its ability to lock up toxins, and it's going to have organisms that I didn't travel to, like volcanoes or geysers or anything like those extreme conditions. I didn't travel to those areas to acquire them. Soil Savers did for us, and I'm going to add it to my soil so I get the same benefit. And I'm just going to use a stick just to mix everything up. And all I'm trying to do is just make sure everything's kind of mixed together well, not overstir it, not agitate it too much or anything like that. This is going to be biology, so I'm not worried about like overdoing it. I mean, the stuff isn't cheap, so I wouldn't like go through wasting it or anything like that. But don't worry like about burning your plants or anything like that. You're going to be pretty good to go. And in fact, what I'm going to do is take a little bit of this stuff and put it in my compost to inoculate my compost, so that way I can have more of those organisms. I'm just going to use a very, very little bit though, because this is a super concentrated amount. And then just like the compost extract, I'm just going to apply these to all the beds, even the ones that I already had built. I'm going to apply it to all 6 beds. All right, so now this next step really depends on your season and what you're trying to do. This one, you got a couple options. The important note to take away with this is that you got to keep the soil like covered, right? Otherwise, there's no protection for the organisms or even your plants, really. And they're just going to start dying or go down deeper into the soil, whatever it may be. It's not beneficial. You definitely want to keep the soil covered. Nowhere in nature do you find soil uncovered, basically. And if it is uncovered, then it's for a short period of time, and then organisms come in. But with this mulch that I have right here, I discovered this method, I think it was last fall, right? Of like inoculating all of my mulch materials as well. with the good biology. And I'm going to keep doing that trend here from now on, because I had excellent results in the older raised beds that I had. 100% germination rates on carrots, and I did not do the board method, which is literally, I've never had that happen before. So that's all, fantastic. That's just, I viewed it as like a testament to how well this method worked. But I'm just using a thin layer of mulch on the raised bed with the intent of increasing it as time goes by. That's like an amendment I'm always adding to soil, is a mulch material, because as your soil gets more and more alive, the faster it's going to go through that mulch material, and use it as like a source of food. Mulch is basically like a water retention food source for your soils and everything. And this is just straw that I'm adding to the soil. Now, if you didn't want to go this route, you could also throw down a cover crop. General rule, going into cold temperatures, you want to stick to clover. Going into warm temperatures, once you get past your frosts and your freezes, good mixture would be like cowpea and buckwheat. But there's a bunch of different cover crops you could use. And depending on what you're trying to fix in your soil will determine which cover crop to use. Now, if I'm going with a clover, I like to use clovers whenever I'm doing the cover crops. And I like to use like low growing varieties, so that way I can interplant what I'm trying to grow within the clover and basically maintain a living mulch. And if you can get a short height clover, then you don't have to worry about terminating it or anything like that. You just do the Masanubo Fukuoka method and pluck out the chunk of clover and then replace it with the more preferable plant. But this is really it. I'm just gonna finish mulching everything in, and then I'm gonna give everything a good watering. And then I'm just gonna wait for planting season after that. I'm covering the soil with the mulch. Like I said, you can cover it with a cover crop if you prefer to go that route. Whatever works best for you is really up to you. Now, as far as like thickness on mulch, that's gonna be, again, kind of up to you. I like to go just a few inches until I get some seeds started. And once I have plants growing, then I can mulch in between the plants a lot thicker. But for now, I don't want to move a ton of mulch just to plant something or to start seeds or anything like that. So for now, I'm just going with like a thin layer of mulch. And also, it's not during our hot seasons or anything like that yet. So I don't have to worry about too much evaporation going on in the soil. And then also with your mulch, you don't have to follow this step that I'm doing right now where I have this all inoculated and everything. You can just use straight up regular mulch. This is just going to give a like a more solid biology application to the soil, because I'm also inoculating this mulch with organisms that are going to glue themselves to this mulch and directly use this as a food source and as a water source, because this straw is going to hold on to some moisture for quite some time. So yeah, this is all up to you. But hopefully this video was helpful for you guys. Hopefully it kind of gave you, like, this is a fraction. Like those bags were $2 a piece, which is literally like some of the other bags to use for raised beds. They were like 13 bucks a bag, and they were claiming they got worm castings in them, all this other crap. They don't. All of it is garbage. Don't waste your money on buying the good stuff. Either purchase the soil savers or use your own compost and buy the cheapest fill dirt you can possibly find. But thank you guys so much for watching. This is how I fill raised beds. Hopefully this was helpful for you. And this is also a method that can get you into really, really awesome production really, really quickly. Instead of having to wait for the biology to show up, you just put it directly where you want it, and that's in your raised beds.